All right, let's just roll. Call to order the January 9th meeting of the New Bern Planning and Zoning Board. Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Kendrick, can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Board Member Kyle Deering.
Here.
Board Member Danielle Peoples.
Here.
Board Member Kip Paraguay.
Here.
Chairman Brad Jefferson.
Here.
Board Member Rusty Ingram.
Here.
Board Member Kelly Kaiser.
Here.
Board Member Thomas Brownell.
Here.
And Board Member Marshall Bowden.
Okay, President.
And Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Kendrick. What's the pleasure of the board for the approval of the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda as written.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Agenda passed. Quickly in my chairman remarks, we once a year we put it in our rules and procedures that there will be a chair's election. Left it off the agenda tonight. Apparently it's a special meeting, so we can't add it to the agenda tonight. That's okay. Let's think about doing it next month, a chair and a vice chair. I know there's going to be some meetings. If it's the board's pleasure that I remain chair, there may be some meetings that I miss. It would be good to have a vice chair, unless the board wants to go with someone else, and that's fine too.
Can I make a comment about that?
Absolutely.
I mean, it seems like that doesn't mesh with when new members and so forth turn over in July. That, I mean, some of the other boards, they do that when you have the shifting of personnel on the different committees as a more appropriate time to elect officials. And say if you had a chairman only going to serve 6 months, for instance, if they were going off.
Yeah, that's a good point. My thought was with the adding it the once a year was just so that if the board wanted to change chair or someone didn't want to be the chair, that was why that was on there.
And I agree with doing it once a year, but I think the July or August, no, July meeting, I think is probably the more appropriate time.
We can, well, you can make a motion to change it, or we can, no, we can't make a motion to change it, or...
Not in this meeting.
Not in this meeting, because it's a special meeting, but we can talk about that in new business at the next meeting, or we can try it a year or whatever. What do you
Just
think?
something for discussion.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I'll still have it added to the agenda, and then at the board's purview, you guys can discuss that.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Especially Kip's got a lot more experience doing this than I do, so I like his ideas. Okay, that's all I've got. Just consider that for next meeting. So we'll move on to new business. Item A, adopting of the new Planning and Zoning Board meeting schedule. What is the pleasure of the board there? Anybody have any conflicts?
Yes.
I'll be out in April.
Okay.
I may be unavailable in July.
Okay.
I'm going to be unavailable in May and potentially March as well, unless we want to change it, which we could do.
I'm unavailable in May and June.
Okay. Hey, listen. We can discuss that however the board wants to do it. It doesn't hurt me to miss a meeting or two, but if you guys have some different dates, and I guess, Kendrick, we can change those
Absolutely.
dates, guys, we want.
If you choose to, yes, you can. The other point, I don't know if you would want to explore just confirming who may miss that meeting, and as long as there's still a quorum that is left, you could still proceed.
Okay.
So, I mean, you could, I guess in theory, you could say, hey, if Danielle's not going to be here for the month of July, you want to make sure that everybody else is.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Should we talk about each individual date or figure out when people aren't going to be here and look at the potential of changing it if we need to, et cetera?
Could we change a date?
You could.
You might bear in mind, Mr. Chair and members of the board, that there are other appointed boards that meet and use this space and use staff resources as well. So I think the proposed dates that are before you have been synthesized so as not to create conflicts in the meeting space or for staff also.
And that was excellent on the elaboration from Ms. Jamie. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The Board of Adjustment meets the week after, the following week, from today essentially, and then I have a DRC meeting that is the week prior to you all usually, because this meeting set for Planning and Zoning Board is every third Thursday. So of each month. That's the plan. So, and Board of Adjustment is the fourth, and then the Department of Site Plan Review, or DRC, is the second Wednesday.
Okay.
So it can cause some hiccups. I will do my best. If for some reason that date presents issues, I could try to notify the board. But
Okay.
yeah.
But do you do DRC in here, or do you do it in the conference room?
We have that set at Development Services.
Development
It's not here, so it doesn't interact with the room, but the dates do interact with certain submittals and things to that effect. So it kind of all gets not jumbled, as everything is in line, but it can make it difficult if some of these dates change.
Okay.
It also seems nice for applicants for us to have a consistent day of the month where we meet and their materials are due. So I like the suggestion, Kendrick, that for dates where we don't have a quorum considering adjusting, but otherwise I think we ought to try to keep the consistent day of the month.
Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah, I agree with that. If we wanted, we could jot down some names, and I could email that out to the board that, hey, Kip's going to miss March. Hey, we need everybody else to be there. We could do something like that if we wanted.
May was the only conflicts that I heard, that Rusty and I both had May conflicts. I think.
Yeah, I
All right.
definitely have a May
That was the
conflict.
only-
March might not be a conflict, but May certainly is.
And staff would support that as well, from myself primarily, just because it makes things a lot easier to functionality-wise. And Ms. Danielle, she made a good point with consistency for a lot of folks. That's what they're looking for.
Yep.
So,
For sure.
And we would need 5 of us for a quorum?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. That
Well,
seems doable. Yeah, we can do that.
I move we approve the schedule as it is because it is the regular day, and if we need to move things around as we figure out when people are out or not, then we do it when we find out we're not going to have a quorum.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the meeting schedule.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. On to item B, Parking Working Group. Rusty, do you have any update on that?
No, we haven't met yet since we had our first meeting. It's scheduled for, I think, the 22nd of January for us to have our next meeting. And so we're just kind of getting going at this point, trying to figure it out. I think there was some reticence as well to maybe not do a whole lot with it because there was discussions about removing parking restrictions and things like that in certain areas. But with the legislation coming out and the land use ordinance slowing down, maybe it still makes sense for us to keep doing this and figuring it out. So next meeting's the 22nd.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's move on to item number C, packet preparation document sharing. Kendra, do you have an update on that?
I can open the floor on that one. So basically, kind of adopted what Ms. Danielle had suggested. I think it's excellent. I don't have any issues from a staff perspective with executing it. I think it was a great idea. But the point, and I've kind of spoke with Mr. Kip a little bit in depth on it somewhat. It's just to try to make fluidity, make it as easy as possible for everyone. So if you guys are open to what Ms. Danielle had suggested as far as for how that information is laid out, the most important aspect of it would be understanding what information do you want to be in that, I can't remember exactly what you call it. I know you've got
I
supplemental.
can't remember now either.
And you've got like primary information, basically.
Yeah.
So primary and supplemental. Supplemental being the secondary information, and then the primary being what you want to see, right off the bat. So the application is typically a number one, but second and third, it could be very subjective to whichever you're choosing. You want to see site plans and things to that effect. Of course, some things don't have that pertain as far as for rezonings, but subdivisions, you'll get a plat, things to that effect. So it just depends on what information you believe is pertinent for that.
Well, certainly the staff report,
Yeah.
Right.
I would think would be very important, right? I'm not as interested myself in mailed notices. I'm interested in the DRC comments. I think those are relevant. I don't know, Kip, do you have anything else you want to add?
Maps, I think, are...
Yeah.
Maps.
And I agree with you, Rusty, that the staff report's important. I would like to see that maybe at the end. You know, because I see it in the past when I see that, the staff report, if it's early on and it says it meets all the requirements and so forth, I lose my energy of looking at the stuff. I mean, 'cause what are you going to do? There's not much you can do with, you know, from our perspective,
Correct.
because it met all technical information, and you verified that. So I'd like to form my own opinions and thoughts about the project before I get the staff report.
Gotcha.
Although the staff report, you know, is important and will carry the day, basically.
Right.
But I don't know. I just feel like if I approach it with an empty canvas, that it makes me feel better about it anyhow.
So if
It's
we
personal.
did,
Application.
yep, then
Staff
maps.
report, or not staff, or maps, the DRC comments. Those three are probably the most important, I think, from what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And then based on what I'm understanding, I've got just kind of a list for myself. The application's number 1, the DRC comments would be number 2, the maps number 3, and the staff report's number 4. I can absolutely organize that with that, so that makes it very easy. All the additional information I'll just throw into the supplemental folder. If you want to view it, you can view it. If you don't have to.
Yeah, I like that.
Great. The only other comment I would make about the information that we get is we've had several occurrences where we're dealing with a portion of a parcel.
Right.
And I think if we add to all of the information we get, that it's a portion of if it is a portion of parcel, blah, then it says portion so that we know we're not dealing with the whole parcel that we see in the map. And a couple of the times you had highlighted or delineated the portion that we were dealing with.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it helps us, and I think it probably helps because you send those same kind of maps out in your notice to the people that live within 100 feet that we're sometimes not dealing with something that's within 2 miles of them.
That's right.
And so that they understand that the parcel extends that far, but what we're talking about at any given time is this little tiny piece of it.
I got you. We will absolutely we'll try to do our best as far as your staff, myself. Typically, I can kind of give you some insight on that process. In our letters, we do express that it's a portion of, but most people, I'll be honest with you, they don't
read it.
That.
They don't read it.
They look at the map and they're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this project's going on in my backyard. And they
Right.
start calling me and they're 2 acres away or 2 miles away. I have so many feet, acres, however you want to describe it.
Yeah.
And I try to express to them, no, it's not even close to you. And then it's about a 10-minute conversation for me to try to explain it.
Yeah.
The letter will state it as a portion of normally. I'm not going to say it was every case, but most cases we
Yeah,
we
and
try
then the
to-
map attached shows the highlighted portion, they
Yep.
can understand.
It's just a miscommunication for most folks. Most folks may not be used to reading maps in that style or just particular how it's presented, and we try to explain it as best as we can. So, but absolutely, if we can try to employ something else, I'll try to see what we can do. But we'll do that.
Does anybody on the board have any heartburn with what Kendrick said about the order or the list of importance? Is that good enough staff direction to, wouldn't need a motion for that, I wouldn't.
Kendrick, I'm just curious, when you get information from applicants, does it vary a lot on the types of information and materials and maps that they're providing, or is it pretty standard? They're following our code, of course,
Right.
but are there some applicants who give a lot of supplemental information? Does that piece vary?
I feel like different firms operate they kind of operate to the degree of, I guess, what they believe the severity may be. So they trying to explain it, but basically they don't want to not give enough information about their project, especially if it pertains to like a rezoning or a text amendment, something to that effect. Anything that they believe may be pertinent, they want to include. So some firms or places or different businesses are different in that aspect. They know exactly what to do. They're very straightforward. They give, the documents to the T. And then there's other firms who are doing extra because they feel like it's going to help their cause. So it's kind of like hit or miss, if that makes sense. It's not really unified, but they do follow our protocol as the normal standard. They're just giving additional information that may be useful.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that's
my intention there is just trying to think about you and the staff
I
and
got
your
you.
time efficiency. If we have that supplemental folder, I wouldn't want it to be super cumbersome to upload.
No,
lots of stuff.
It won't be nearly, it'll be roughly about the same, and it makes it relatively easy for me to have actually a list out of what you all view as being more important. Because
Yeah.
then I'm like, because a lot of the times I'm trying to make the decision as to whether or not to include it for you all, but I also want the board to be informed properly so that you can make the best decision going forward. So that this list helps, and then anything that is outside of this list, just understand it will be in the supplemental folder. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
So it makes it pretty cut and dry for me.
Okay.
And when you get to, we said the DRC comments are important. Often there are several iterations of the DRC on projects because they don't make it through the first one.
Yes, sir.
And then we have to, there's another follow-up meeting. So somehow we need to understand, because in the past I've seen them come in where, with a whole bunch of comments from the initial meeting, and then there's a second set that said that it met all the notes and requirements.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I don't know how if you want something that's different, what I try to do, I'll just try to explain that process. If the first set of DRC comments essentially is them trying to address that set, but they haven't addressed everything, or there's something else that comes out, that's when I flip to a second set, and I try to label it specific to that point so that they understand what's left for them to meet. And sometimes we extend to a third set, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure to try to keep it as 1, 2, and 3 so that you understand the transition of what's
Yeah, if you
taking
keep them in
place.
that process, that'll
sir.
be fine.
Yeah, and I will make sure that they stay in that, pretty much that line, because that
Okay.
tries to alleviate any confusion. So it gets to be a lot when you're trying to follow pace with about 6, 7 items, and they're all having secondary sets of information, so.
Is it also your intention to have those folders like you have now and that stay on there in perpetuity? Is that at least for the year, or what's
So
your
I wanted to leave those as an example from
Okay.
what Ms. Danielle had suggested, just so that you'll see kind of based on how she has it described. So I think she just put the application name, which would be the name of the item, and then essentially that folder, you'll go into that folder, and you're going to have the primary folder and then the supplemental folder.
Okay.
So your primary will hold the application, the DRC comments, and then the only other point, too, that I should add, and I might need to put this in as number 3 instead, is the response, the DRC comment
Oh, for sure.
responses. Because I know you all look for those as well. So I will add that as number 3 and then flip the maps to 4 and staff report to 5.
Okay.
But that's basically what you're going to dive into, and that's going to be per item. So they'll all be arranged in that format. I left it there just so you could view.
per item per meeting?
Are you
That
going to
then
rate the
stays-
top level by meeting?
Yeah.
Date?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, they'll all be in the same folder set or folder that is labeled for that specific meeting.
Okay.
So it'll break down very similar to kind of how sending you see like 5 separate items, but they're all different documents. So you'll have 5 folders with the actual name. It'll break into the 2 file folders for the primary and the supplemental.
Perfect.
And then you can view it, at your leisure.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, I'm just thinking in July, we talk about something in February, it's similar properties or something, maybe we go back and look at it, and then you don't have to email it
Right.
about or whatever, it's just there for us to look at.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I apologize about the time frame. I know you had made a mention. I don't know how to fix the expiration of the link. I may just have to resend it if somebody has a question or wants to go back and look at it,
Yeah,
and that's fine. I don't
went
know
in-
what the time limit is.
I went in there today and the link was dead. So, yeah, so, I don't know. There's got to be, I know I can do it on my stuff that I manage every day.
I'll try to
There's
figure
got to
it out.
be somewhere in there in the city to
It's usually some type of setting. I'll ask my colleague, because Deanna is actually, Deanna Treble, who's been here before and kind of presented, she actually helped me to
Yeah.
set that up. And it's-
Okay.
It's wonderful. So
Yeah.
it works very, very well.
All right. But if not, I'll provide some free consulting if that's needed for city and everything. Okay, no problem. Anything else on this side?
I would like to add, if we could, at the next meeting, if Robert's going to be here, a discussion about the land use ordinance and what's happening with the historic district. Because I know that there's a whole lot of HPC guidelines and things like that that are separate from any kind of ordinance. And that, I believe, is creating some issues in the historic district. And I'd like to have a conversation about, is that already being added because there's going to be historic zoning areas or codes for historic zoning, and exactly what's going to go in that? I'd really like to understand that.
Okay. I will, basically what I can do is add that in as another talking point for you guys on new business.
Perfect.
And Robert should be attending the next P and Z meeting, and then I'll express.
It's not
that.
urgent, so.
Okay. I will do that.
Kendrick, I guess, I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but the only other thing that we might want to add to that next meeting is there has been a lot of talk about making final plat approval an administrative process, because right now it's taken forever. If you're a developer, it feels like it's taking forever to get final plat approval. Can we talk about that or have that presented in some fashion?
What would you say, Ms. Jamie?
At the next meeting?
Right. Would that be appropriate for the next meeting?
Yeah, we can't do that
Not
today.
right now.
Yeah, no, I said for the next meeting,
Okay.
have that as
Yeah, the
an
next
agenda
meeting,
item.
I can add that in as another talking point for that.
Okay.
Yes.
That'd be fine.
Anything else for the next meeting? Okay, then I'm going to move on to item number 5, 6, adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
I have a second. Motion is second.
I go quick.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.